ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's a South Texan poppy poet living that hashtag middle-class gay life. It's Chibi.
She's a little bit Selena, a little bit J-Lo, and a whole lot of Pisces. It's Rocky.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out
and Gemini's Productions. Hola, amiga.
Hola. How you doing?
No, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, friend. I'm doing great. Out here sunning my little butt in New York City. Chibi, I know Chibi had told me before, he was like, I do not sympathize with anyone who has a heat wave. And I'm like, you have central air. We don't have central air. We have to pay like additional $2,000, $3,000 for central air.
Yes, but we have triple-digit heat 8 months out of the year.
That is true. That is true. But we also live next to the Atlantic Ocean. So it's just like the heat and the humidity. And then we have a mayor. I mean, that same thing too. You have like a government that doesn't care. We get blackouts.
But I mean, come on. But aren't you like part Puerto Rican? Aren't you used to the heat and the humidity and the ocean air?
Yes. But it's very different. Will I gladly take the humidity and like the heat from like the tropics of my land that I'm supposed to be in? 1,000%. Okay. I'm thinking about like in West Side Story with like, I want to live in America, right? And then how like the girls are like, no, but we got credit cards and laundry mats, and the men are like, but we have a beautiful paradise. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, let me go back to the paradise.
I know. It's funny to say this actually, but like I feel like I'm too far north for my life, even though I live in the South, quote unquote. Yes. But like my people are from Central Mexico. Okay, where the weather is like between 75 and 88 year round.
Yes.
And it's just gorgeous and it rains and it's cool and it's fresh. But every time I go back, they're like, but you're not really from here. And I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Yes.
You're right.
It's always a mind fuck when people say that. And then when you come to the States, they're like, you don't belong here. It's wild. I remember when I used to live in Puerto Rico, I was like really young. The minute I met my new neighbors, they're like, oh, you're American. And I was like, they would never call me American. Wow. And then when I went to Texas, I told them I was half Puerto Rican. And then they were like, well, you're illegal anyways because you're south of the border. And I'm like, do you not know? We are a territory. We have a United States citizenship. Yeah.
It's such a strange place to be. Like when I get called out by my cousins for my accent, my American accent when I speak Spanish, and like the idea of like neither from here or from there, right? And never being enough of one or being too much of the other, right? And navigating this very weird in-betweenness that happens when A, you live in the diaspora, and B, when you're dealing with like a mixture, like an intersection of identities, right? Like for me, it's both Mexican and American. Yeah. You're Salvadorian and Puerto Rican and New Jersey and Texas,
yes. All over the place. This like, ni soy de aquí, ni allá, ¿verdad? It's like, we're not from here, we're not from there. But we really live in this like in-betweenness, right? This like hyphen, this intersection of all of our identities. And I think that is why I want to say for myself, I feel like that is where I can get more empathy, right? And can relate to so many different people because it's like, it's hard to always not be enough. For everyone. And it's just like, I get it.
Yeah. I think it's a superpower. And, it was something that we definitely jumped into and talked about at length with our guest today, Haydil, because she has a lot to speak on that, being from multiple places and mixed race and living in New York City. And it was just such a joy-filled conversation to be able to speak a common language, even though all three of us come from very different places, right?
Yes. Love this conversation. Coming from all the way from the boogie down Bronx. I do love the Bronx, even though I currently live in Brooklyn, I don't have a beef with the Bronx. But all the way coming from the boogie down Bronx, Haydil Henriquez is an artist, an educator, cultural advocate, program manager, and Bronx-bred poet. She earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Education from Swarthmore College in 2014, and has worked with communities across the diaspora, facilitating oral storytelling workshops for youth. Although she does not possess a formal degree in writing, she witnessed the magic of poetry during her formative years in the spoken word community. Published in the Best Teen Writing of 2008, and later receiving honors like the Gloria Anzaldúa Creative Visual Performing Arts Award in 2012 and the Intercultural Center of Swarthmore. She has participated in the Poets House Emerging Poets Fellowship in 2018, Las Musas Books Hermanas Mentorship Program in 2020, and Canem Intermediate Portals in Language Workshop in 2021. She has been honored as the inaugural Bronx Poet Laureate in 2021. This is our conversation with Haydil Henriquez.
All right. Haydil, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hey, hello. We're so excited to see you and interview you today. Oh my goodness. We were kind of talking a little backstage, but I just want to say your energy is fantastic. I'm a little sick, but it's super, super, super needed. I feel like we've all been going through it for the past, 8 months, this whole week, year.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the second in a New York hostile takeover of this show, is what it feels like.
Yes. We usually have a lot of people that are coming from Texas, maybe from the West Coast. I was like, East Coast needs to represent. So we're excited.
I'm glad I'm here to represent New York.
Great.
Before we dive in, because we were kind of having a conversation, but can you just confirm how to pronounce your name? So we're all, not just us, but also your current and new to soon-to-be fans can.
Certainly. I mean, I will start by saying that my name is very complex in nature. It has many stories embedded in it. So what I like to say is that my American name, or my Americanized name, is Haydil Henriquez, and that's because some people can't really pronounce how my family actually says my name, and that is Haydil. Haydil. It's a little bit difficult. It is not pronounced how it is spelled. My mom told me a long story about it being a name of a Middle Eastern princess. I looked it up. We have Google. There is no Middle Eastern princess named Haydil. She probably lied. She said that she saw it in a magazine. But Haydil, I like to say it's my campesino's father's doing.
No, it's great, because actually when I first saw your name, I actually thought it was an Arabic name too, and then I saw the Henriquez. I was like, oh, okay. And then it's then I kept looking at your bio. I was like, oh.
So it is Arabic in origin. I can't pronounce it correctly. I would butcher it, but it means the cooing or crying of a pigeon or a dove. So the cry of a dove or a pigeon.
Wow.
Yeah. How New York is that?
It's so New York. We said we wanted an East Coast represent.
Right.
Come here. Oh my gosh.
I brought the pigeons.
And the patron saint of pigeons and cooing. I love it.
I love it. And as someone who, my birth name is Manuel Roberto. which then became Manuel Roberto, which we were not having, right? Then eventually it was Robert and all that. So I'm very familiar with my American name, but I denounce you.
Yes.
Jaidi, for sure.
We're so excited to have you here. And with every single segment that we do, we love to start off with a cute little check-in. So I just want to ask you, how's your heart today, friend?
My heart today is feeling light right now. I have a really big event tomorrow, and I've done all the work that I needed to do to feel prepared. So my heart feels light, and that's great.
Amazing.
It's such a blessing to be able to walk through this world with a light heart sometimes, right? Because it's like you can let yourself relax and you don't feel like you have to carry everything with you.
Yeah, and I feel like I so often walk through this world with a heavy heart. When I do have a light heart, I have to take it.
Yeah. Yes. Take a minute. Yeah, definitely really bask in that lightness, that joy. We have to find joy for ourselves. Great.
I had to do a quick self-check and I'm like, wait, what am I carrying? What's going on in that right shoulder? Wait a second. Let it out. We don't need to be heavy right now. Okay. I love that little check-in. I love the energy. Like Raquel said, I love the energy that you're bringing here. And so we're going to dive into our icebreaker, which is something we call speed dating. We will ask you a series of questions, 4 to be exact. And we encourage you to answer as concisely as you feel is necessary for us to understand your answer. So, question número 1. Where do you derive your strength?
My ancestors.
Yes. I love that so much. No, not spooky. I feel like ancestors are more like they're out here dancing with us, like with drummings. We want more drums.
Yeah. Was that like how concise you wanted it? I mean, I heard concise and I was like, 2 words.
It's up to you.
As concise as you feel is necessary. You said my ancestors mic drop and walked away. And I'm like,
that's it. That's a sentence. There was a period at the end of that word.
Yeah,
I mean, I will have to say, it's like, I mean, they've gotten here so far. They've, overcame so much that I can't complain about bad weather. I can't complain about taking the train because my ancestors were working the fields. So I'm just so grateful for all of the sacrifices they've made so that I can have the liberty that I have to walk through this world as a woman of color, as an independent woman of color.
Amazing. Fantastic. All right. Now that you are, you kind of talked about the trains and taking the trains. Let's see. This is again random speed dating question. What's your favorite train to ride in? Like,
oh my God, all of them? Can I say all of them? all of them.
Really?
Listen,
even like the L, even the D.
Listen, fun fact. I used to take the train for fun to ride. For fun. Just from the Bronx to Brooklyn, just writing stories about random people on the train.
That's amazing.
But I love the 2 train. Maybe because it left me right by my house. I didn't have to transfer.
Okay.
I like the 2 train. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard someone say like, "No, I'll just be riding it just like that." Now that 250 is swipe, I want to make sure I get my 250s worth right.
Certainly. Now it's $2.90, and you can see all of New York City, of New York City for $2.90.
Amazing.
I imagine from my few trips to New York that it is the best people walking you will ever do. So,
certainly.
All right. My last question, and I ask this of all of our guests, is what is your favorite thing to eat? Whether it's like a specific food item or a whole food dish, however you want.
All right. So it has to be this dish that my mother makes is a arroz con maíz. So like it's this like corn rice. And then she has this like chicken breast that she adds like broccoli and carrots. It's not an official dish that is known. It's just my mother's staple. That is my favorite thing to eat. With, of course, a little, fried sweet plantains and an avocado salad on the side to top it off.
Amazing. That sounds delicious. I'm like, can your mom cook for us? Please just send us. Pues, all right, this will be the last speed dating question. Pero, can you please tell me, like, what song are you obsessed with, like, right now that you're like, it's on repeat and I cannot stop?
You know what? I don't know why I like this song so much. I gotta look it up. It's like that Tato and Fasego song. Who is this? I listen to it all the time just because of this one part where it's like, Day. I don't know why. It's the Masego and FKJ is called Tato.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't know. I've never really bothered to listen to the lyrics. The beat is just fire, and it's old. It's like, it's a bit older. It's like what, 2, 3, 4 years old, but I love it.
Amazing.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
I know, we're gonna put on we should just really start like a playlist for complimentary podcast of like, these are all our favorite poets obsessions this week.
Yeah, I'll definitely listen to a Words and Shit Spotify playlist.
There we go.
I like that.
Putting it on our to-do list when we hire our social media All right. Well, that was just the tip of the tortilla, shall we say? Getting to know you, and so I would love to ask you now to really open us up and dive into this conversation with a poem.
Certainly, I am going to read a poem that I wrote over 2-3 years ago. I wanted to start off with something a little more recent. And a lot of my poems are a bit political. So this one, right? So this one is still a work in progress, but it's about colonialism and imperialism and kind of like reclaiming land and our identities. And this one is called To Be Brown and Woman is to Balance the Baskets on Your Head whilst birthing a river for the town. Enough sacred water to fertilize the stolen lands into empires, remembering Mamantingo, not everything pretty shines, but the men from places anywhere but here extracted mountains of amber as they did our gold, copper, silver, spirit, and nothing radiates in our northern loams, missing the resin of the trees. Wonder now that all that once was is gone, have the stars forgotten their place? All year we hear the land trembling, singing a raspy lullaby to their children. Don't cry, mija, they mind the salt in our eyes. There is no nickel left, the bauxite is gone. Wonder why the rivers run dry. They say the island has a stray dog problem. The plátano crops burst into flames last spring, and it wasn't because of the pandemic. The roots burned black as soot. They say these are the ends of our times, yet tell us to keep working in vain. Our people use the earth for remedies, not luxury. Amber honey to soothe throat. Do they know how much flame and callous sweat it takes for cacao to become cocoa butter? All year we hear the mountains whimpering. Tell mother silence the humming of her waters the next time the white gaze harbors cruise boats. They call it Amber Cove now, as if they could pay homage to what they've destroyed. The women, the colors of soil, rich and brown, with children who hunger for change, sell trinkets in the marketplace for foreigners who return to their stolen land homes to tell their neighbors tall tales of conquer and adorn their armories with our sacrifice. Your greed fuels genocide. Want to take a picture? Hey, tourists, here's a PS fucking A. Next time you go to a fucking Caribbean island to fuck up all things pretty, don't. Give the people the money and don't take a thing. Not the maracas with the colonizer colored red blue flag. Not the bag of roasted sweet peanuts or ice cold coconut water. Not the artisanal calabasas that are to die for. All year we hear our children, the rivers weep thirsty, and your fathers have taken enough.
Amazing. Yay. Tippy, you are mute.
I am.
I just saw you like going in. And I was like, oh.
I was taking a collective breath. What a way to just kind of like kick us off and dive right in there. I loved that. I again, going back to the energy, I love the energy that poem, carries with it, and the way it is unapologetic in its message and presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You honestly kicked us off with the idea of like driving your strength from tus ancestros, ¿verdad? And being Dominican and living in the diaspora. I think both of us can also attest to that lived experience. I'm Mexicano, but I grew up in Texas, and Raquel is Puerto Rican and Salvadorian, but grew up in Jersey, right?
Yes.
So, like, how do you connect to your ancestors, to your homeland, to your patria? In the diaspora, in order to kind of like share that message.
Yeah, I think, in the beginning, I always thought that I needed to kind of just completely embody my Dominican identity. And when I was younger, I had no idea what that meant. I just thought it was like great music, good food, some dancing, right? But it wasn't until later on in life that I realized that I wasn't just Dominican. I'm an Afro-Dominican woman. I'm a woman of the Caribbean. I'm a woman of the African diaspora. And I can't accept my Dominican identity without accepting my African identity, right? My father was a dark-skinned Dominican, Afro-Dominican, and my mother is a light-skinned Dominican, right? And I think that's pretty common, I feel like, in the Dominican Republic. And because of that, there's a lot of like Black erasure, or there's like an old poem, I can't remember who it's an old Puerto Rican poem about like the Black behind the ear, right?
Yeah.
How oftentimes like we want to accept Latinidad, but we forget about the other parts that come with it, that history. So for me, it's critical to frame all conversations by starting out saying I'm an Afro-Dominican woman, and it is the enslaved Africans of the Dominican Republic and the indigenous, the Tainos and Macori people, and the colonizers, the Spaniards, and their mixtures what created this kind of population that exists today. So I try to take in that context and share it as much as possible, even though some people are not as accepting of it, right? I also have to recognize the flip side. Like, I'm a light-skinned woman of color, right? And that comes with a lot of privileges. And when I walk into a space, my role as a woman of color is to create spaces for the darker sisters, right? Who don't traditionally get invited to spaces.
Amazing. Thank you. I have so many questions. I don't even know if I'm ready. We're just ready to end it. And I'm like, this hour is not enough to ask you all of them. I want to go back to kind of your poem of this reclaiming the land, and kind of just calling out colonialism and tourism that is so detrimental sometimes, right, to the island, the DR, and obviously in Puerto Rico too. Our islands heavily rely on tourism. That's what they love, well, as the United States likes to say, right? And and it can be very, very damaging, just the footprint left behind. And so I saw that you were actually a farm manager in a family farm in the DR. And and so I just wanted to know, like, for like almost a whole year with that, and you were working with like livestock, with the land. And so how was that time like actually being in like the motherland, nurturing the earth, and how did you bring that back to New York, and how is that like also shown into your writing?
I love this question. And so to give you like the full story, I actually needed a mental health break. I had moved up significantly in terms of leadership roles, where I was formerly at a nonprofit arts organization, social justice, that was serving the Bronx specifically. And I went from a program associate to the co-director of the entire art center within 4 years. So I was managing this huge team. I was like 26, managing folks who were like older than me. And it was a lot. It was a lot. And I'm a Capricorn. I'm an overachiever. So that's what I do, yes. Right? But I reached the point where I felt that if I did not retreat back to the land, I would not have a body. I would not have a mind. I would not be here. And I lost my father while I was in college, and I never got an opportunity to grieve him at all. I was like, his last words to me was focus in school. And that's what I did. I said, well, he said, finish school. Yeah. That's what I have to do. In 2018, I said, I need a break from all of this. I need to not send an email, not plan another event. I need to go back and learn what my ancestors were doing. So I went back to the Dominican Republic. I moved in with my mom, and I was on the farm every single day. I was learning about the land that my father left us, and the soil, like different tricks to make it more fertile. We have cacao, so I was like farming cacao and like getting it from the tree, and like getting a machete and opening it up and eating it straight with my dirty hands. It was great. It was phenomenal. And we have some cows. So I was managing dairy cows, and it was truly a struggle. We were experiencing significant droughts. And that's part of that. But what comes up in the poem that I've just read, right? Where is, we think about tourism as something that's healthy for the economy, right? But we don't think about the long-term effects it has in the environment. We just came out of like a 3-4 year drought in my little town, and I'm in the Caribbean. It rains everywhere else except my little town. So it just made me really aware about what we put into our soil, how we cultivate our seeds, right? How if we want to harvest for the next generation, we need to start doing the work now, because it could take a decade for a tree to bear fruit. So we need to start doing the work now. But it was by far one of the best years of my life. I vowed to return as much as possible. I just got back from DR 2 days ago. So
amazing. That's wild. Okay. You're like, even when you're back, you're like, let me go do a podcast. Let me go do something tomorrow. Wow. You just not, that's that Capricorn in you. That's like, okay, you got you. Efficiency.
Yeah. As a Capricorn moon, I completely understand your struggle and your hustle. There's so many themes and topics that you kind of have just already touched on in like the past 10 minutes in terms of, the drought that your small town was kind of going through, the loss of your father, the Black erasure within Latinidad, the African slave trade, the Spanish colonialism, tourism being another form of colonialism, if we're being entirely honest, right? And so all of that has to come with its weight in grief, right? I know we were right now you were celebrating your time there, right? But this history is still there. That history is in the dirt. That history you kind of carry with you, right? And how do you navigate that grief in a healthy way, right? Is kind of my question.
I think I'm still learning. That. I think it's a process. And I don't think my parents necessarily learned how to manage that grief. So I've inherited that burden to figure that out, right? And I think a lot of like first generation Latino Americans feel the same way, right? Where it's like, well, this whole world around me is collapsing, and somehow I have to remain hopeful, and somehow I have to figure it out. And it's a huge load to bear, but I think for me, I have 7 nephews and nieces, and they are my whole heart. And I do not have any children, but I have a lot of little adopted children who call me Titi and Mommy and all sorts of things. And I think for me, what I try to focus on is them and the kind of future I want to leave for them. And that makes it a little bit easier, because I know that if I'm coming to it from a place of love, and then it will remain that way. I don't know if that's a great answer. I'm still processing that out. Hopefully the next podcast you invite me to, I'll have it.
Yes. I love that. No, I think, grief is necessary. I think we don't realize how many different, we don't really name grief in different things. Like, what we're witnessing is we're going into collective grief. When your best friend breaks up with you, that's a grief, you also maybe not getting the job you wanted, or the grant you wanted, you experience grief. And I think people are so scared to say the word grief, when it's just it is natural. It's also how you move through it, right? That can be great. But I love that, you come from a place of love, and you're already talking about, the people who call you Titi, the people who call you Mommy. Let's talk about the people who called you the first inaugural Bronx Poet Laureate.
Yes. So the Bronx is Reading named me the inaugural Bronx Poet Laureate in 2021. I served through June of 2023, and it was an absolute honor. There were some challenges because we were still getting out of the pandemic, but I was the literary ambassador for the Bronx, and I was able to perform in a bunch of different middle schools, elementary schools, and high schools, provide different literary workshops to students and parents, and just be an overall presence and supporter of the literary arts. So I did not think I was going to be titled the inaugural Bronx Poet Laureate. I'll say that.
But you know what's funny? Because I remember watching it happen through Instagram. I was following the Bronx is Reading, and they had all y'all's portfolios. I vividly remember in a little circle, each one of y'all, this is who our top finalists. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen such transparency with how this election is going with the poet laureate. And I think you were, if not you were the youngest one on that list.
There was one other younger person. Can I tell you this story that I have not told many folks? Okay. I almost dropped out. Yeah. So one of my dearest mentees, someone who I really admire, was a finalist. Her name is Alondra Uribe, and she was a early college student. So she was one of the youngest on the list, and I was like, I need to drop out. I can't compete against someone who was my student. That's no, I gotta, open up the pathway for them. And it's so funny because I was talking to my godmother. I'm a Yoruba. I'm the Lukumi faith. And she was like, well, weren't you just praying for an opportunity like this? And then I was like, yes, I was. She's like, And then you're going to tell your Orishas, your guides, your ancestors that what you prayed for and what they delivered, you're going to give up. And I was like, oh man, I guess I can't. So the whole time I was like, I hope I don't get it. I hope I don't get it. And I was like, oh, that's how the universe works, huh? Like,
oh my God, that's an incredible story. And I think also with Raquel sharing that, I think that gives insight that this conversation is like 4 years in the making. Like Raquel has been like very passionate, like wanting to get you on this show for quite a while. And so we are really, really happy to have you here. And to have been able to kind of like see that journey, both from, you know, like being selected Bronx Poet Laureate and then everything that you did within that role, has truly been a joy, I would say. And so with that, I would love to hear another poem. Very selfishly, like, please.
Of course. So I know we were talking about grief a little bit, and I have this one poem that I started writing about my father, and it is called Waterborne Cortege. You get to the island. This time, the verdant hues blend, end, gaunt, and gray. The whole sky in mourning. A paradox for campesina hood hands. The sinking salt as silt, and 22 tires, sweltering gravel, gallanting a processional of homesickness, huddled in clapping hollers. And you clasp, pursed lips corralling unspoken rue. The unruly roads of Santo Domingo are silent, the nebish air heavy pulsed. Before you bury your father, he touches your lower spine, tugs on your spirit an unhemmed string. Recuerda, mi hija, me fui, but I left you all, our name. Fingers paralyzed into limoncillo tree limbs, heart roots throb, digging into the absence. The women who carry your name besiege your frail body. Rápido, rápido, se fue la negra. Call you from your light place with wails, wet wash Florida water towels. Y Padre nuestros que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre. They pull each bow, string you out. All you see is gone. Faint like the rest of your days. When you return, your croaked voice demands a jug of iced water. All you are certain is Papi expects his beaded tin cup by the poplar casket. Shove the 6 pallbearer carrying your father towards the sky. Honor his name. Walk with the sun at its peak to the Navas River Bridge. Papi dove into when mountain creeks hurtled, scooped out shrimp and crabs with bare brown boar hands. All the vecinos feasted when the skies cried. The river, dry now, mocks your reflection with skirts of dusty moss, tinkles onwards as a whisper. Papi must have taken all that's divine with him. When giving up any ghost, don't forget to pay homage to their water dwellings.
So I am immediately struck by how pronounced the sonic element is in your poetry, right? I think, and obviously we do our research, so I clearly know you came up in spoken word, right? And so I think it's a superpower of poets that came up in the spoken word to be so conscious and so masterful in their use of how it sounds and not just how it reads, right? So can you talk a little bit about your journey through spoken word, and then we can get into the controversy over aging out of spoken word?
Certainly. So I started out doing spoken word in high school. It's really funny. I have an amazing creative writing teacher. Her name is Araceli Skirmay. She just so happened to be teaching in the Bronx, and I just so happened to be at the school that she was teaching at.
Oh my
telling
God.
you,
Yes.
the ancestors. It's the ancestors. I'm telling you. It wasn't me. It wasn't her. It was the ancestors. They paved the way. And she's really the person who really began inspiring me to write. First of all, like, I didn't see folks who looked like me teaching creative writing. And she really elevated me. She was like, you got this. Your words are inspiring. I had a really heavy accent, although I was born in the U.S. My first language was Spanish, so I had a very heavy accent. So I started doing poetry, and I loved that. I was like enunciating, and I like at the time, and I'm honest about it. Like I was trying to become more American and lose my accent, and now I'm like, hell no, fuck that, right? But it really helped me kind of like develop a deeper understanding of language, right? How words sound, right? How words like fall into each other, right? Like how one word can mean several different things, right? So I'm very appreciative of that, like foundation of spoken word. It also was like a space for me to just tell my story, like, and be raw, and like have all of these emotions, and have a stage and listeners and audience there to receive it, because there seldom were spaces where me as a Bronx girl could express myself like that. And I always say, like, I'm transitioning out of the spoken word world. And it's not because it's bad or anything. I love it, right? I just think that sometimes page poetry allows you to sit with it a little longer. Sometimes with spoken word, like it's more about of course the performance, right? But the reaction you're gonna get. And I like to write poetry in a way that has double meaning to kind of reflect my like transnational identity. Like, I'm from here and there. I'm from the Dominican Republic and the Bronx, right? And I often felt that sometimes when I would perform, like there were some things that were totally missed. And I'm like, y'all didn't even understand what the poem was about. But I guess that's like all writing in general, right?
Yeah. No, amazing. I kind of wanted to say, like, I don't know. I feel like the past few years, especially Dominican women writers have been like really given the spotlight, right? I think I've seen like Elizabeth Acevedo, where now we have Angie Cruz, to like Julia Alvarez just had another a new book too. And so, and they're all kind of in New York in some ways or the other. So I kind of want to know, like, you are, even though you're young, you are like an elder within like the Dominican women writing, right, poetry scene. And can you like talk about like the mentorship that you've also received in the Bronx or from other Dominican writers? And like, you kind of touched upon like you were a mentor. And I kind of want to see like, how does that mentorship just like expand? Primarily within like the Dominican women's circle of writers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't be here without amazing women and men who've kind of like supported my artistry. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't have a lot of Dominican women mentors. I had a lot of African American women who mentored me, like Alma Kojo and Renee Watson. She's not African American, but Ellen Hagen, Aracelis Gramay is like Puerto Rican and Eritrean, right? But there weren't a lot there. I mean, that I knew of. I've memorized lines from Julia Alvarez because I read all of her books. Like, I want to tattoo Great Bull Sire cows because I'm one of 4 daughters, right?
Yes.
So like, I grew up reading Julia Alvarez, and I'd be like, I wish I could be like Julia Alvarez, but I didn't even think it was possible, right? I didn't think that was a road I could take, and because of that, I felt like it was so important for me to come back home to the Bronx and to be that kind of role model for people like Alondra, like I mentioned, and other young people who came through the art center where I was managing programs. Because growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, and even so, like now, like the New York City, like public education system is extremely segregated, and we often have teachers who are coming and doing Teach for America or some other kind of like 2-year fellowship where they come in and they leave, and you feel that in the school. So I didn't have a lot of Dominican mentors, and that's the reason why it's so important for me to mentor not only Dominican women writers, but other Latinx and writers of the African diaspora.
Yeah. Have you talked to Julia? Like, have you been like, hey, Julia, I was a poet laureate. Like, can we have cafecito one day?
No, I have not. I need to reach out. I need to reach out to Julia. Be like, hey,
I know.
I've admired you since I was in the 3rd grade.
We can use a sound clip to be like, how's our campaign? Just like, get you to have cafecito with Julia. Amazing.
We're gonna make it happen. We're manifesting. Okay.
Manifesting. Let that be the next thing you ask for your ancestors.
Cafecito con Julia.
I love that this conversation started with ancestros, right? And like those that came before us and paved the way. And right now talking about those that helped, influence you in your writing that has led you to where you are today, right? So I think now we're at the present. And so I want to finish the conversation with looking towards the future, right? As you look into the future and what you're manifesting for yourself, we conclude our conversations with this question. This is something we just started this season. So the question is, as you look towards the next chapter of your life, what is the title of the poem that is the next chapter of your life? It's the response we get from everybody, by the way. It's like,
that's the response.
They like get quiet and they're just like,
meditation.
Ooh, that's such a great one. To reroute.
That's really good.
And that just came up.
Yeah.
Wow.
You want to expand on that? Like what that means to you?
Yeah. I mean, I want to keep the 2 because it feels active, right? It feels like it's ever going, right? It's not like it's done, right? I think I'm on this journey of just evolving and kind of claiming my ancestry, and it needs to be active. It needs to be a journey, right? And then reroute. I think about like how resilient like plants can be. Like there are times that like floods come in and remove all of the vegetation, and somehow there's like one little root that like resprouts and like grows a whole new forest, and I'm like, if nature can do it, we can do it, right? Like we are from the earth. So the idea of rerouting, of recreating, rebuilding, re-envisioning, remanifesting, right? But also, like, if you think about the root system, right? Like, it is just as large in the bottom as it is in the top. So I think, like, just building a really strong foundation is key for me in this next chapter. I'm getting into my mid-30s now, and I think laying a concrete foundation makes sense.
Yes.
Oh my God. Absolutely. I can't wait to read that poem.
Yes.
Yes. I have to write it for you, Chibi.
Well, thank you again so much. I told you, like, I feel like we can continue to talk. There's so much. I definitely want to say before we like even close this this episode with you is like I really felt like your ancestors were present. I feel like even our ancestors were present, like very high energy, it was just very communal and super like all loose, right? All light. So I also want to say thank you to the ancestors that were present too in this conversation. But you have been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been, again, we can have like another episode or two with you. But for right now, where can people find you and your work?
Certainly. Folks can find me at HaydilHenriquez.com. Just as you see on the screen, HaydilHenriquez.com. And, you know, if you send me an email through there, we can connect. I'm not very great with social media. I do have an Instagram at the Haydil Henriquez, which I am not very active on. I need to just blow up so I can hire a social media manager like you all. So, but yeah, if y'all reach me at HaydilHenriquez.com, I'll certainly reach out. I'm very responsive to emails.
Amazing.
Love that. You do know we were being sarcastic when we
I thought you were being serious.
No.
Leveling up.
No, it's just
Hey, we gotta manifest it.
Yes.
I just put it out there.
entirely. Que placer. Thank you so much for joining us, Haydil. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Have a great one.
I felt that one. I felt that one in my body.
I did too. I really did. I feel like in my body, my heart, and definitely in my spirit. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, it was like I said, I feel like the spirits, our ancestors were in the room with us, and you were talking about the diaspora, and the diaspora affects so many of us, like the displacement. What is home? Where is home? How do we make home within our new home? And it's always so great to be speaking people within the diaspora because they just get it. And like you just find new places of home, new places of community within those people. And this is where I feel like this was beautiful. This was really magical.
I was resonating so hard with that idea, especially growing up in the Mexican-American border in Texas. Like I wanted to be as American as possible, right? And so left the border to go to Austin. It's very white. And actually still is, right? And then living in the super multicultural Houston, right, where it's just everything. And it wasn't until I moved back to San Antonio that I really felt like I was like reconnecting with that part of myself, right? My Mexican heritage, and really embracing what that culture was. And it was actually when we moved back here that we really started on a regular basis doing our ofrenda every year para Dia de los Muertos, right? And sad to say that ofrenda has gotten bigger and bigger as time goes on, right? As it will. But every year we take it out, we build it. It takes up a giant area in our living room. We put up all our pictures, leave out little things, and just a way to just kind of remember where we come from, right?
Yeah.
Got us here. And so I'm now inspired to make that more of a daily practice. And
no practice.
How do you connect?
It's really interesting because when you were talking about that, you want to make it more daily practice. Actually, my ofrenda is year round. I never take it down. So immediately when you enter, I have my ancestors right there, and I have like my sage and everything, and I get to greet my ancestors. And they're definitely present in my home, and I wanted them to be present in my home. And not only that, in my room, I kind of made a little ofrenda to myself as well. So then I have Florida water that my therapist was just like, if you need it clean, limpia, just put Florida water in your hair. So I'm out here like smelling like old school, like Caribbean men in my hair, just walking around. And I also have my velas, right? I have my velas all over the place too. Yes, that I got from the Botanica. So so when I look in the mirror when I get ready, it is also a like an ofrenda of how I start my day, of like saying, hi, I'm here, and like asking for protection. So I don't think I've ever told you that, but yeah.
No.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, I hadn't. I'm gonna meditate on that.
Yeah.
I'm going through a lot of life changes and establishing new routines and how I want to move through the world.
Listen,
I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, ofrendas are amazing. Do it for yourself and do it for your ancestors. They're here. They're here to guide you.
And do it for the listeners. Let's thank some people so that we can go and have our moments with our ancestors.
Yes, of course. Okay, so thank you again so much for the listeners. We wouldn't be here without you. We are, as you know, season 4, and we're still going strong. So thank you. Little heart. Wait, I'm trying to do the little heart emoji that you just did, but it's okay. But thank you so much. We love you, and please continue to listen to us.
Thank you also to Chris Conde, who produced our theme music for Words and Shit. We use it religiously. They are a queer artist from San Antonio, now based in New York. So please look them up and support queer artists all over.
And thank you to Write Art Out in the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture, whose support has helped produce this podcast. Thank you.
If you want to find out about new episodes as they come out, new guests as we bring them on, please make sure you follow us on IG and Twitter. It is @WordsandSh.
And if you want to watch past episodes or listen to us, don't worry. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can re-listen to this episode and your other favorites as well.
That's right. We are now more than 80 episodes deep, y'all. So plenty of to go discover. Please like, subscribe, rate, review. It helps us get the word out about this show, helps more people find out about your favorite poets, helps you discover new favorites along the way. So please and thank you. Until next time, y'all stay safe out there.
Adios. Take care.